Mr. Scott, you and I have something in common that you may not realize. I too have invited Mark Hamill to my birthday party as well, and I too got stiffed. So I feel like I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's really a singular feeling. There's nothing quite like it. How old were you when you did this?
Oh, I was 6. I was convinced he was going to show up. I knew that he wouldn't go to the other ones, but because I was the
Yeah,
biggest Star Wars fan, he would show up. But then again, not many people get the pleasure that you got of actually getting a lightsaber from the man himself. Yeah, I mean, you looked
yeah.
completely floored, and I personally think if I had been in your shoes, I literally might have fainted.
Yeah, I mean, floored is a is an apt word for it. It was surreal. It's when you're truly surprised like that, it's just sort of out of body.
Now, when I told my wife I was speaking to you, she said I should bring up the Cones of Dunshire, and I was like, "That's not the show we're talking about here. We're talking about Severance." And she's like, "Well, you are talking to the architect himself." And I was like, "Yeah, I know I'm talking to the architect, but we need to talk about this show, Severance." Brilliant performance by you, sir. I was completely blown away. So let's just start from the beginning. How did they approach you about this, or were you always attached to this from the beginning?
Well, pretty early on, Ben Stiller, who's the executive producer and directed 6 of the episodes, Ava McCardle directed the other 3. Ben called me in January of 2017 uh, and just sort of gave me the elevator pitch, so to speak, sort of the overall big idea of the show, and said, "This is something that's really in the beginning stages. I just thought of you for it, and I just wanted to see if you thought it sounded interesting." And it sounded incredible, and I couldn't really get this idea out of my head for the next couple of years until I finally read a couple scripts, because they were developing it for a while, and Ben went off and made Dan Amora. Um, so by the time I actually read the scripts, it was like 2019 maybe, and uh, and I just couldn't believe how good it was, and also just loved the character so much. And the show was really something I, as an audience member, would gravitate to. It's exactly the kind of show I like to watch. And it was so good. I just figured, I've been in show business long enough to read something that good and just think, well, there's no way I'm going to end up actually getting to do this. Um, they'll find someone more famous or better or whatever. But if I do get to do it, if I do end up actually landing this job, at least for me, inside of me, it'll be as if I've been spending the last 20 some odd years earning the chance, the opportunity to get to actually play a role this good. And that's sort of the way I looked at it, sort of as a good luck charm just in my head. And then ended up, luckily, getting the role.
Would you describe your role in Severance as one of those once in a lifetime opportunities actors get? Rarely. I actually, with that, know it's once in a lifetime. I apologize. You can answer. I'm sorry.
No, for sure. You're exactly right. It's literally a dream role. I mean, I've started acting kind of professionally like fall of 1993. So, I haven't come across anything nearly this good in all that time. So, for me, at least, it's once a lifetime getting to play something like this. It really is something that I'm glad it took this long, because if I had this opportunity 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready for it.
I mean, most people associate you with sort of lighter fare, if you will. Was that one of the many draws to Severance? Because this is certainly not a light role by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it was. When Parks and Rec ended in 2014, I wanted to try to do, something maybe a little more serious. I mean, I love comedy, of course, and will always love comedy, but after 5 years on a show, I just wanted to, a comedic show. I wanted to try something different and sort of sought out Big Little Lies and really, I wanted to be a part of it and auditioned and luckily got a role in that. And doing that was so much fun, and it was so interesting, kind of dipping back into something that wasn't. I wasn't just like trying to dig out laughs, and hadn't done that in a while, and so it really kind of was really exciting creatively, and so I really wanted to find other stuff that was more in that vein, and so since Big Little Lies, I've been kind of sniffing around trying to find something more dramatic, and Severance really it's sort of a mix of a lot of genres, sci-fi, and there is comedic elements to it as well, of course. But yeah, it really fit the bill as far as what I ultimately wanted to do.
Well, Big Little Lies I refer to as my shows because I just love the train wreck nature of that show. But then
Yeah.
you get Severance that's just so out there to most people. But if you sit there and you just listen to what's going on and follow the story, you find yourself watching one of the best written shows on television or streaming or whatever you want to call it. I guess my question is, how do you prepare to play your role in this menagerie of weird, we'll just say, because everybody, the beautiful thing about the show is everybody has a part in the whole process.
Yeah, it is beautiful written. Dan Erickson created it and wrote the lion's share of the season, and it's all, he's sharing his brain with all of us. That's why we get to do the show at all. As far as preparing goes, it was really a matter of kind of whittling down and figuring out how to play it, because it's something that could be, it's these two different halves of this one character. There is also the instinct or the urge to play it as two vastly different people. And we definitely could have gone that way, but I think ultimately what was important to Dan and Ben and I was that it feel like the same guy, just maybe different parts of the same guy or different halves of the same person, just in different circumstances and completely different eras almost of this life. One of them has 40 odd years of life experience of joy and sorrow and all the things that go into a rich, full life. News happens to be in a period of mourning when we meet him. And the other half of the character, the innie part of Mark, is, for all intents and purposes, like 2.5 years old, and doesn't have much life experience at all. And so it sort of became this just sort of a matter of addition and subtraction. I kind of started thinking of it as a math problem, because sometimes we would, we shot the whole season at once, right? So in the morning, we might be doing any scene from episode 2, and in the afternoon, maybe a outie scene from episode 7, right? So there was a lot of sort of trying to figure out of the two arcs where the character was in each circumstance and how they affected each other, because physiologically even though they're not conscious of each other or aware of each other or what each other is doing, there are feelings and things that ebb and flow back and forth between innie and outie, and they do affect each other.
But what struck me about your performance in season 1 is that someone else in this role could have easily just gone over the top, okay, and really just ruined the whole experience as far as I'm concerned. But you just do little subtle things with each part of that character that really sets it apart. Now, were those things that you talked about with Ben and the writers, like what you were thinking, or were these just things that just came to you in the moment? Because there, in my opinion, lies the brilliance of your performance this season. It's the subtleties that just are the chef's kiss, in my opinion.
Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. You know, I think that that what was really important to me was when we were starting, and when I got there in like October of 2020, and we started shooting the day after the presidential election, just to put you in time and place.
Whoa.
Like right in the middle of the pandemic, and it took about 9 months to shoot the whole thing. And you know, getting there and seeing the kind of breadth of the sets and the wardrobe and just the whole world that Ben and Dan were building, what became apparent to me is I was just going to have to completely give myself over to it. And both technically, because there's so much precision involved technically, but also emotionally, I just needed to put all of my trust into Ben. And that's easy to do because I trust him as a person, but also as a collaborator. Like I trust his taste because I love his work so much and have for my entire career. I've been a fan. And so I knew that if I was keeping an eye on my performance myself, like a director's eye on myself, which I sometimes do if I don't know a director, don't trust a director or something, you know, you're always sort of keeping track of what you're doing. I couldn't do that if I wanted to do this properly. That's what I felt. And so I just placed all of my trust into Ben, and we just dove in head first. And it was a matter of just going scene by scene and chipping away at it, and just completely depending on him to let me know if something's working or not. And of course, my own instinct of what was feeling like it was working or not. But anything that you're seeing, I can completely put into Ben's column as far as his skill of determining whether it works or not and whether to use it or not.
So you're, just to kind of go in this direction, you're saying if there's any success or any praise coming your way, it's largely in part as well due to the fact that you have such a great team at Severance, from Ben to the set design to your castmates. Am I misspeaking here?
100%. Yes, absolutely.
Now, in terms of the season, there had to be a moment where that was probably your most difficult moment that you knew you had to nail, or perhaps your character arc may not be what you envisioned it was going to be, what you had maybe talked to with Ben. What was that moment for you?
It may have been there's a moment in episode 4 or 5, where Mark visits the site of his wife's death, where she was killed in a car accident, and we happened to shoot that scene on the 1-year anniversary of my mom's death. And
whoa,
yeah, and it was just a coincidence, and I knew this was an important moment in the show, and it needed to be right. But I was unsure about it. I was unsure about how to approach it. And Afa McCardle was directing that episode, and so I just sort of approached it and really kind of went in there and thought about, and really, that was just my mom, and thinking about my mom and how much I missed her, and that I still couldn't believe she was gone, and so, you know, I think in a lot of ways the performance, you know, it would have been, you know, she was really excited about this show and really knew how important it was to me, and and you know, being in New York by myself and having her having passed away just like 6 months before we started the show, I couldn't have done the show without her. I feel like she was definitely there with me, and making it, you know, all the feelings very kind of raw and real throughout the season.
I thought that moment that you're referring to was a little more authentic than I had prepared myself for. It was just very, it just really hit me like a sledgehammer over the forehead, because what the face I saw was the face I had when my dad died. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's that look. You can't describe it to someone. You can't really tell someone how to do that look. It's just real. You were so raw and real in that moment that I just, you couldn't help but not empathize with that character at that moment. And little did we know that you were pulling from, you know, those experiences. Now, is there a moment in this season, and by the way, thank you so much for your time. I'm such a fan and I love the series, and you're just answering all these great questions, and I can't wait to share this with everybody. Is there a moment in the series where you were filming a filming a scene with a certain group of actors or whatnot, and in your mind, you were like, damn, this is a special show?
Yeah. I mean, you know, there is a scene, it was pretty early on in shooting where Britt and Zach and John and I are walking down the hall, and we run into Christopher Walken, and the name of the actor that he's walking with is escaping me right now. Pardon me, but standing there with John Turturro and Christopher Walken and Zach and Britt, and it's just this motley crew of people doing this weird, in this situation where you're just dropped in the middle of, if you just landed on planet Earth and watched us filming that scene, you would be like, what are these people doing? None of this makes sense. It was really, really special. And any scene I had with Patricia Arquette, same thing. I just couldn't believe I was there with these incredible people. I mean, to be completely honest, it was just about any day on this set with these unbelievably talented people. I mean, you know, as far as Patricia and John and Christopher Walken go, John Turturro, you know, I started out doing background work, right? And so I've been fantasizing about what it would be like to work with John Turturro and Christopher Walken and Patricia Arquette since I started. I mean, these are three of the people that as far as I'm concerned, and as far as most people in show business are concerned, are the best, very best at what they do, and have been for a while. And so the fact that I actually got to work with them and really kind of do some incredible, you know, work on incredible material with them, is something that I never got used to, that's for sure. And it was just so much fun, and really an honor to do it. I know that saying things are an honor or humbling or I feel blessed or whatever is so like cliche.
No, it isn't.
But it really felt that it was really special. And yes, the show itself was really special. We were always kind of looking at each other like, this is so weird. But if it works, yes, this is going to be something else. And of course, you never know if something's going to really click or not. And we're just so happy that people have been into the show and enjoying it.
Why do you think fans have been drawn to Severance? I mean, it's developed quite a following. It's almost like a bordering on that cult following, if you will, of people who are so dedicated. People watch the first season one or trying to find new things about different episodes. Why do you think fans have gotten this into this universe?
Yeah, I think emotionally it's a resonant show. I think the timeliness of the work-life balance is something that just kind of ended up being particularly resonant with where we are culturally around the world. There's this reconsideration of work-life balance and what work is and where it fits in your life and where you need to do this work, and how much of your time you feel you need to spend doing that work and how much time you need to be taking for yourself. It's a complete re-examination of all of it that happened to be kind of marinating in everyone's heads when the show ended up coming out. But also the puzzle box of the show is really fun. I know, I love Black Mirror and Lost and Twilight Zone and all these shows.
Of course.
It's some of my favorite stuff. And so that's really fun. I think it all comes down to the characters and the people. And I think that Dan really came up with some great characters, because all that other stuff doesn't end up really mattering that much if the characters aren't people that the audience can connect with.